All right, this is the Yield Coach Show, Season 1, Episode 6. Okay, every episode we bring you dynamic entrepreneurs, real estate investors, business leaders, inspirational guests that are ready to open up, share their story, the good, the bad, the ugly, so you can learn lessons, gain advantages, and accelerate your own success. I am your host, Ian Brown. I am joined today by our guest, Obi Dorsey. Obi Dorsey is a local legend here in Northeast Florida. I'll give you a quick rundown. Obi is the owner and founder of Freedom Home Buyers and Freedom Realty Group. He is a self-proclaimed deal junkie. He is a super negotiator. I can vouch because I've been on the receiving end of an Obi negotiation. Never pretty. Obi has been in real estate full-time for 8 years. He's flipped over 1,000 deals. I'll say that again. He's flipped over 1,000 deals. He owns just under 100 residential doors or units, 300 acres in development, and his personal focus is to live life to its full potential. I couldn't be more excited to have Obi on the show. Obi, welcome.
Ian, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much. Longtime friend, and I'm excited to see you take this new adventure that you're doing with the podcast. A lot of people are going to benefit from the information you're handing out.
Obi, I do appreciate that. We'll see where it goes. I'm excited to have guys like yourself, and of course, without your participation, we wouldn't have much of a show. So, thank you for coming on. Let's open it up. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Of course, I know you pretty well, but I plan on learning even more about you, and let the guests get to know you a little bit about your background, where you're from, a little bit about the early Obi Dorsey.
Yeah, sure. Man, I don't know. I don't think I have anything exciting to tell. I've been in Jacksonville for 15 years. I've always done real estate. I always had an entrepreneurial bent. But I launched full-time into real estate a little bit late in my career, in my opinion. About 8 years ago, went full force into it. I think my only regret was that I didn't do it a little bit sooner. But, sometimes you don't know what you don't know until, it's easy to see in the rearview mirror. But with that being said, I mean, I'm a family guy. We have 6 kids total. Active with hobbies and sports, keeping up after all the little ones. But, we're trying to grow a scaled up wholesaling business and utilize those profits to do bigger deals in the development space. And, we're trying to make an impact in the community as we grow. And we're having a lot of fun at it. Sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But all in all, it's been an amazing ride, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I just feel extremely blessed to have, to be provided the opportunities that I've been provided, and to be able to utilize those and grow.
And before real estate, I know you said you're 8 years full time, more than that, of course, before you made the switch. What were you up to before real estate?
So I was like sales and estimating for an insurance restoration company. Kind of that was my background prior to real estate. I'd always done real estate on the side, like a live-in fix and flip or a couple rental properties here or there. And, long story short, I just got to the point where I kind of took stock of where I was in life and just accepted and acknowledged, like, man, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not doing what I want to do. I'm at somebody else's behest, and I'm not living life fully. I'm not, a little bit of fear, a little bit of hesitancy of like, can I do this on my own? Can I be successful? Can I've got responsibilities. Can I maintain those responsibilities? And I think I just made that pivot, and I haven't looked back.
I like that expression. If you leap, the net will appear. And a lot of times it is just fear, usually just, self-conceived fear. A lot of times it's not based in reality. Sometimes it is. And, but I love to hear the story of people going from, whether it's a 1099 that was really safe or a W-2, into this entrepreneurial space like you did, and trying to make a full-time run at it. Did you pick up? I do consider you a skilled negotiator, which is critical in the type of real estate you do. Did you pick up some of that in your sales background, or did you just always have it? Where did that skill come from?
No, I mean, I think I've always enjoyed negotiations from like a very, very young age. I would negotiate just for the sake of negotiating, not just for the sheer enjoyment of it. But no, I mean, that career definitely sharpened that. Gave me some analytical skills and some it's just honestly constant negotiation. So, but I think that's what I enjoyed the most about it, honestly, and even still today, I really gravitate towards that in our space.
I don't know if I'm quite to your level, but when I was a kid, grade school, I know I wasn't even in high school yet. I would this is before Craigslist is really what it is now. I would get like the Auto Trader and the Boat Trader and like the classifieds out of the newspaper, and I'm like in junior high, and I would just call these owners, and it's funny to look back, but I would just be, let's say they wanted to sell something for $5,000. I would just see like what's the lowest they would take, and just kind of work on my negotiation skills at an early age. I'm not even sure why I was doing that. It's not like my parents were going to let me buy a boat, like at age 9. But it was a good practice.
Yeah, and if you would have got a boat at half price, they probably would have let you buy it. They'd be all
exactly. I think I helped my buddy negotiate this. It was one of those old school golf carts, or I'm sorry, go karts that you hardly even see kids ride anymore. Like the exposed chain, the really loud motor, pure steel. No seat belt, and just this super dangerous machine. But we negotiated it off of like a newspaper ad, for I want to say like a quarter of what the guy wanted. And we just ran that thing ragged for years, and we were always like undercapitalized, but looking to get into things. When you're young, it might be a go-kart, a used car, maybe a small boat, and then as you grow up and you become a real estate guy. Next thing you know, you're negotiating downtown buildings, and you're maybe wholesaling a hotel or an apartment. It's really a lot of the same skill set. I think some of the big names that some of the audience might know, like your Grant Cardone's. I mean, he talks all the time about his car sales background. And I think some of these childhood pursuits, it's kind of funny how they show up later in life.
Yeah, man, 100%. And I negotiate just for the fun of negotiating. The other day we were coming out of a parking garage, and instead of a machine, there was a man there kind of helping. And, I don't want to pay for parking. Do I have to? And, I'm constantly amazed at what you'll get if you ask, right? So if you don't ask, you don't get. And my wife kind of rolls her eyes and like, whatever. But I mean, it's not because I'm cheap, because it's really not about the money. It's just about the fun of asking.
Like the sport of it. It's like sparring.
It's the sport. Yeah, 100%. And if you do it with a smile, people receive it really well. I mean, the guy's taking tickets. He's got to have the most boring job in the entire world. So, somebody joshing him a little bit, it's well received. So.
And I think most of this audience has a real estate concentration, or they're probably interested in investing in real estate if they're not already. And this is a bit of an anecdote, but every time I'm brokering or helping others in real estate transactions or doing my own, if you take the time to get an inspection report, even if none of them are perfect, I mean, new construction inspection reports are going to come back with something. I know lots of buyers that just look at it, sit on it, don't do anything. At minimum, I mean, kind of to Obi's point, send that inspection report over to the seller or the seller's agent and just ask. Maybe you're too timid, you're not sure how to price a discount. Just say, here's the report, had some concerns on these pages. Is there anything you're willing to do for us? And when you leave it open-ended like that, and you say it with a smile or a little bit of candor and charisma, it can go a long ways. You don't always have to say, here's this report, I want 10,000 off or whatever it is. Sometimes you do have to do that, and sometimes reports you discover like egregious things that you just have to address. But I mean, I've had deals that were well negotiated up front, you get the inspection report, send it over. You still are okay with the pricing, but you just point out what's in the report and ask if they're willing to do anything. And I think in the same vein of what we're talking about, that can go a long ways, and it tends to not isolate the other party.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find a dollar per hour thing that you could do that offers you a better return on your time than negotiating. I've heard stories about like Donald Trump at the heyday when he was doing a lot of building. He would get, periodically he'd go in and get an invoice or go through his stack of invoices and call up one of the vendors and just negotiate, a discount on whatever particular situation it was, but just for the sheer purpose of, this is him at his heyday. I got a $10,000 discount for 5 minutes worth of time. Like, that's still recognizable. But then the second component of that is just so that people know that you're paying attention and you're actually watching, right? So you're paying attention to the details, and that sets kind of a precedence as well.
I couldn't agree more. And we developed a kind of brief online course to help people kind of get into this real estate entrepreneurial mindset. But another thing that I talk about in that employee to entrepreneur course that we filmed, at minimum, especially early on, get competitive bids, and don't be shy about the fact that you're getting competitive bids. Just by all the vendors knowing that they're one of three, maybe one of five. I mean, 5 bids, you might not do that on everything, but just by simply them knowing there's some competition for this work, especially if it's a reasonably big project, that's inherently going to drive down those bids. The last thing you want to do is come across as urgent with one vendor, and they know it, and they don't think you're price sensitive because you're in a hurry, or you tell them you got hard money, you tell them you don't know anybody else in these trades, the clock is ticking. I mean, none of these statements are going to do you any good. So no, I hope people are taking some things away from this. So Obi, if you would, I know a little bit about your company. You have the real estate, and I think you do some management, maybe not a lot, but a lot of wholesaling, some straight brokerage. Can you go into just talk about between your different Freedom Realty and Freedom Home Buyers, what's the full scope of your services, and like what your concentration is, and what kind of volume, if you don't mind sharing, what kind of volume you guys are doing?
Probably 80% of what we do is wholesale real estate. So we're buying properties cheaper and selling them cheap. We're bringing off-market properties on market or onto our intimate kind of private buyers list or whatnot. And that's probably that's a large portion of what we do. Ancillary things, we'll do some fix and flips. We're kind of picky about the projects that we're taking on the single family space from a fix and flip standpoint. They're typically the lighter renovation projects, or the ones that are just extremely high margin deals. So I've been around long enough that I've learned the ins and outs, and I'm kind of choosy about the fix and flip projects that we take on. That side of the business is the fix and flip side is a lot harder to scale than the wholesale piece. We do some brokerage activity. It's also kind of limited. It's more friends and family and just situational. It's not a huge focus of ours, but it serves our purpose on the wholesale side of being able to sell deals a little bit better, a little bit easier. We own, like I mentioned, just shy of 100 doors that we self-manage presently. We've kind of consolidated that down to a little bit. It's more small multifamily is where we've kind of put our focus. Like in the years going forward, I'd like to take that up 1 or 2 notches to like the medium-sized kind of multifamily. And then, I think I mentioned to you the other day, we're doing some land development stuff. Got 300 acres or just shy of 300 acres in some sort of development play. That's in a nutshell, that's our business.
I'm going to back up a couple minutes there. The audience might not be familiar with wholesaling. They might have heard the term. In your own words, can you Can you just walk us through that industry?
We're providing value to the market in a sense that we're offering sellers a convenient, fast, easy way to sell their property that it typically needs some TLC, or they're on a short timeline. So we're saving people's houses from foreclosure, bad tenant situations, just physically distressed property, tax deed sales, things of that nature. And we're buying those houses fast and making the sale very convenient for the sellers and giving them certainty and some peace of mind. We're typically buying that real estate at a discount, and we're bringing that, either the property itself in the sense that we've purchased it and we're reselling it, or that we're selling the contract and we're bringing that to the market as a whole and offering that property still at a significant discount to either a landlord or a fix and flip buyer, or sometimes even a homeowner or a hedge fund that wants to recognize buying something that still has a little bit of meat on the bone, and there's some equity that they can take advantage of as well.
Okay, and just to break it into my own verbiage, a common wholesale would be, you're watching probates and divorces. You're probably sending out mail campaigns, maybe some cold calling like driving for dollars, but you're finding these deals that have not been recognized yet, and they have some urgency or distress. You then place them under contract, and then at that point, there's a fork in the road. You could then assign your contract to an end buyer for a fee, and that would be like the flipping of the contract or the wholesaling, or you go ahead and close, take title, and then sell it immediately or shortly thereafter with or without some rehab. Is that true?
100%.
Okay. Yeah, the wholesaling, I find that term confuses people that are kind of like just considering getting into real estate investment. One, I might let you talk about this, but yeah, I will. Obi, tell us why wholesaling may be the best initial avenue for somebody looking to get into investment real estate.
Yeah, I mean, low cash and low risk. So, the advantage to wholesaling is that, if you're not taking title to a property, you don't have, any physical risk with that property, right? It's not going to burn down while you own it. It's not going to, the termites aren't going to eat it. You don't have to pay to mow the grass, or if you got your numbers wrong, and the rehab is $50,000 as opposed to the 25 that you thought it was, like, you don't have any of that risk. So, and the reality is at least to do one or two deals at a time, you can do it via sweat equity, and you don't have to do a lot of, it's less capital intensive than buying a property and doing the renovation. So, the value that you're providing is just finding the deal, recognizing the deal, and bringing it to the market.
And so as far as the capital that would, say you want to get into wholesaling, and wherever this audience is listening, let's say you're in Tampa and you like what Obi's doing. I mean, this is a guy who's done 1,000 of these or more. I guess I'm just going to use my own words. You would need to have your branding. You need to probably have a good web page, because people are going to like Google you once you go knocking on their door or sending them a letter. You're going to need to be able to afford to send out probably, I would think, thousands of letters, maybe thousands monthly. And you're going to need to have some capital to put these properties under contract and have that earnest money binder, that escrow deposit, depending on what verbiage you use in your part of the country. But that binder, does that seem to sum it up, Obi?
I mean, at the risk of disagreeing with the host, which I know is a bad idea, but no, I mean, you don't. You need to have some charisma and some tenacity, and you need to go and find the deals. So you don't have to have a huge budget. You don't have to have, a website. You don't have to have a branded shirt. You don't have to have a logo. You don't have to have any of that crap. You have to have the balls to go and make an offer to a seller for half of what their house could be worth. And you have to do that, 30 or 40 times until you get somebody to say yes.
I love that answer. I mean, it's raw. It takes durability. And I think, it's interesting because I sit here with, I think I just hit like 16 years of real estate work. It hasn't all been investment work, but, I think that it's great to hear answers like that, because sometimes as I get further down this journey, I think of all the resources that I have, and I'm just used to having them. I've had web pages forever and business cards and, yes, branded polos and all that stuff. And now a lot of people in my market already know me. But no, you're absolutely right. Somebody could break into this market, and take all my clients away with no web page and no business card, and just roll up their sleeves and be willing to get after it. Now, I'm glad you answered it that way. That's a great nugget.
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage somebody new to this space, like, get a yellow notebook, or this is a white one, but get a yellow one, or get one, make a line down the middle. Get on the phone, talk to people on Craigslist, talk to people on Facebook, talk to people at your local, RIA, or your local, there's some sort of real estate meetup. Talk to those people on one side of your sheet of paper, write down what someone's looking for as you get to know them. On the other side, write down what somebody is trying to get rid of, or what they don't want, or what they have too much of. And if you did that for a week or two, you would have enough to put some deals together. You're just parlaying what somebody else has and what somebody else needs and connecting the dots. And you can make a business model out of doing that if you were consistent at it and just creative enough, thinking through how you're providing value to somebody. Because that's all you're really doing. You're just providing value to the market in the sense that you're solving people's problems. So, real estate investors are typically doing, they're either buying, they're holding, they're selling, or they're undecided, right? So if you know that they each fit into one of those boxes, you can triangulate and value engineer deals.
I feel like the power of follow up, and you can do it with a Google Calendar or a CRM or whatever you want to do, but just the power of being able to stay in this game long enough to where it's like, Obi called this guy in 2000, let's say 16. He was undecided, didn't want to sell, and he just stays in touch. I see Obi nodding for those of you that are just listening. And I think most of the better deals that I've been able to do, not all of them, but at least a good chunk, they just came from follow-up. And I don't mean like a couple days later. I mean, it might have been 6 months later, a year later. I mean, real estate, it can be a long play. And sometimes you'll see someone's year and you're like, damn, they just had $1 million year or whatever they did. I can almost promise you it's just reflective of the preceding 3 to 5 years of what they were up to. So any thoughts on that, Obi?
No, I would 100% agree with you. Whatever results you're seeing right now are indicative of what you did, 3, 6, 9, 12 months prior to that. Sometimes even longer on the larger stuff. So yeah, I think just being willing to take action, start where you're at, and just be consistent.
What on that note, because myself included, and a lot of people that are just entrepreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs are, by definition, a lot of them are visionaries, and visionaries often struggle with consistency and focus. It's like just a tale as old as time. And books like Rocket Fuel, like Gino Wickman, and they break it down as visionaries and integrators, and it's a rare person who is naturally both an integrator and a visionary. And a lot of us are. I'll just speak for myself. When I take those polls or those tests in like Rocket Fuel, I'm like 94 out of 100 on the visionary side, and my integrator side, it was like 55. It was much lower. So I was very clearly a visionary. But for those of us that are solopreneurs or run a small shop, or we're just trying to break out on our own, you have to wear both hats. And the visionary part, yes, it's important, but the part that really moves the needle is going to be all those integrator skills that you don't really like, the consistency, the organization, the follow-up that actually allow you to benefit from the fact that you were a visionary in the first place. So I think Obi's point about being consistent and taking steady action. I've said this in previous episodes, but the accumulative effect of small daily action is just unbelievable. And I'll say it again. I don't think there's a single day that I ever did anything magical. Yeah, everything has been just small accumulations of intentional steps, and you do need to have a direction. Don't just take a bunch of small steps in a scattered direction. But if you have a plan and you take steady action, and you don't give up, you're almost guaranteed to have success.
I think you're right. Like over a long enough time horizon, just the fact that you're tenacious and not giving up will serve you very, very well. You mentioned Rocket Fuel, a book along that same line. If you haven't read it, or I can kind of recommend it to the group, is the Who Not How. Just like it's a really simple concept, but you don't need to figure out how to do everything. You just need to figure out the who. And being intentional about that, and then telling people that who it is that you're looking for to help you. Like it's kind of like you express that thought to the universe, and lo and behold, the next thing you know, it comes to fruition. And it's just, I don't want to say all metaphysical, but I mean, it is kind of true in the sense that like if you can believe it, you can achieve it. If you can't even conceptualize it or recognize that there's a need, like even if it came to you, you wouldn't be accepting of it because you haven't kind of announced that to the world that you need it.
I totally agree, and I am familiar with that Who Not How. I think I heard that author speak on a podcast, but no, that Who Not How is critical, and I think it's I think the concepts of the Who Not How and the rocket fuel. Part of why I like those is it kind of relieves some burden. I don't want to say guilt. That's kind of a loaded word, but it takes some of that off of the entrepreneur who might feel like you're failing because you can't do all of these things. We talk about like the whole loaf of bread. The entrepreneur might only have a couple slices that are critical. He needs to do like that $10,000 an hour negotiation call. He needs to make high level, like mission statement style decisions, the direction of companies. He may need to be involved, or he or she may need to be involved in HR and the hiring and firing. But I think the Who Not How notion is very freeing. It's very unburdening to know that you could plug somebody in, and by telling them, look, I'm hiring you because this is not my strength. Now you're empowering that person. And if you give them some upward mobility within your organization, it can go a long ways.
So you mentioned something as you were speaking. You said, the guilt that goes along with, kind of either mistakes you made or maybe potential that you haven't maximized, or guilt to just, look, I'm trying to do this. It's just not my skill set, right? Like I'm a visionary, but my execution on operations is weak. You can beat yourself up against something like that, but that's not going to actually get you anywhere. That won't move you forward. Being willing to kind of forgive yourself and just accept who you are is really important. Let me just give you an analogy real quick. Yesterday, I realized, to my dismay and to my horror, that I had been running a pay-per-click ad campaign through Bing as opposed to Google, and I had delegated this to an individual in the company who did not end up. He's not here anymore. He set the campaign up. He left shortly after he set it up, and this was in January of 2019. I found out yesterday that this Bing ad campaign had been running for 3 years to basically to a website that was, I don't know, wasn't even monitored. I don't even think it's connected to our CRM. So $60,000 I had spent over the course of 3 years running a campaign I was basically giving Bill Gates money for nothing, which Bill Gates probably doesn't need or care about my $60,000, but I sure do. And man, I want to tell you, like, I can't blame anyone else. It's fully my responsibility. I felt pretty low for, I don't know, 30 minutes. So I sulked. I got pissed. Then I sulked. And then I kind of had an epiphany. And I was like, you know what? by finding this, I just gave myself a $20,000 a year raise going forward. And I will never make that mistake again. I'll make a whole bunch of other ones, probably ones that'll cost me more than $60,000, but I won't make that one the same way again. And at the end of the day, like I paid an expensive fee to learn a really important lesson, which is, I need some more controls. I need to be reviewing Amex a little bit closer every month, and like, but I'm not going to beat myself up against it for it. I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to acknowledge like that was a really boneheaded mistake, and I'm going to get on with it.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because obviously that, it's not pleasant. You had to show some vulnerability to, tell the audience. And, this show really is about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Obi's telling you that, he sulked, he was pissed, but then he forgave himself. And I think if you're going to survive in this space, you have to forgive yourself. Otherwise, you'll just flee right back into your perceived security of whatever it was, that W-2 position, or that steady contract labor. So, no, I'll share a bonehead move that I had recently. I would never have let this happen to a client, but I didn't stretch a financing contingency that I could have and should have, because I had a lender give me verbal and email assurance that we were going to be fine. Essentially get through a couple nuances of underwriting, and quite specifically, I'm doing a fix and flip loan on a project, and I had an appraiser render an ARV, an after renovation value. They did not render an as-is value. So to do that bridge, that fix and flip, these private lenders need two values, as-is and ARV. Gave them my construction schedule. He got to an ARV that wasn't quite what I wanted, but I was willing to, bridge the difference. But he never rendered an as-is. And so my loan officer is saying, you know what, we'll follow up with the AMC, we'll get to the appraiser, and we'll just get that as-is value. He did put a land value in there that isn't all that far off from your purchase price, so I'm sure we can get an as-is. Well, fast forward, that appraiser never did an as-is. I can only go from my loan officer to AMC, AMC to appraiser. He doesn't work for me, he being the appraiser. He stopped answering my calls and texts, and he never rendered the value. Essentially, I'm taking a commercial building and doing short-term residential out of it because zoning allows it. He's like, well, I can't render an as-is value because I need commercial comps as-is. In reality, that's not true, because the highest and best use does not change just because it's office now. If highest and best use is short-term residential and it's zoned for it, then highest and best use today is still short-term residential. There just happen to be office tenants there. Either way, he never rendered it, and I blew a deadline that I would have never let happen for a client. But then now I've got my pants down with money in escrow, no way out, and I'm actually still working on this now. But if I can't get an extension, another appraisal, I probably need to get like another 3 weeks. I don't know if the seller's going to give it to me. I'm going to lose thousands of dollars, and it's boneheaded. I told you I've been in this line of work, like 16 years. How did I let my own escrow go? I should have just extended that deadline because I did not have a clear to close. I just should have extended my financing, and I probably could have. But I relied on the assurances of a loan officer, and inherently loan officers are optimistic. Nothing against loan officers. And as of right now, it didn't come through. So, here I am, relatively deep in my career, losing escrow when I really never should have. So just another example. But I'm in the process of forgiving myself. Obi did a good job with him. I'm still sulking, I have to confess. But that's my little my
well, ugly. You're still you're still in the middle of that one. So yeah.
And it's sad because it's what I actually counsel. Like when I represent people, whether it's legal or brokerage, I mean, I would never let them, unless they just say, Ian, I don't care. I want to show a force. Here comes a big deposit, non-refundable. We're closing, whatever. Okay, if there's a style or an angle or an advantage to be gained, sure, a strategy. But if it's just a run-of-the-mill deal, people do not want to jeopardize their escrow. And I did it to myself. It's like the cobbler's kids running around barefoot. I just figured I could solve it, and I relied on the assurances of a lender when he can't do anything for me if it doesn't come through. So anyways, that's just another one. I guess the point here is, guys, you're always going to, have some egg on your face from time to time. It doesn't matter how experienced you are. And the truth be told, if you're a visionary entrepreneur, you're always trying to grow and reach and do something a little bit bigger and better and maybe more creative than you did the last time. Well, guess what's going to happen every now and then? Things like this, things like we just shared.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'd just piggyback off of that for somebody that's, well, the two things I'd wanted to share is one, like the story that we tell ourselves is critical on how we believe and how we act, right? So, sometimes it's self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense that, like, if you're just constantly telling yourself, hey, I made a bonehead move, I'm not good enough, I'm not the right person, like that affects your behavior, that affects the way that you're going to interact with others, it affects your confidence level. And, just switching that around a little bit and telling yourself a more positive story, it has a big impact. And so I just encourage people to be careful about that, to listen to that little still voice in the back of your head and, not believe your own bullshit. Like if it's, don't be so hard on yourself. Right. And the second part of that is we talked about fear earlier, being willing to take some risks, being willing to stretch a little bit and reach for that next level, whether it be jumping from the 1099 or W-2, or whether it be, going from a residential to a commercial deal, or just trying something new, or just, don't let dollars, a bigger dollar deal freak you out. Like let the deal itself prove if it's viable or not, as opposed to just getting shy because of the dollar figure.
I love that. And I have a note just to myself, with these different interviews. It doesn't always come up, but you have such positive psychology that I'm going to steer this way a little bit. Limiting beliefs, they're always there. You've touched on different things about self-forgiveness, and if you the self-fulfilling prophecy of thinking maybe you're insufficient, maybe you don't think, maybe I'm not smart enough. Everybody else seems to have this figured out. What I learned, and I'll share this, I'll be real brief. What I learned from being in brokerage, appraisal, law, all these different fields for years now, on the brokerage side for 16 years, many people that I've represented, other, doctors, physicians, IT guys, high incomes, like software sales, a lot of them want to put money into real estate just to diversify. And what I learned from working with those type of people all the way on up to like the career real estate people, they're all figuring out as they go. Some might be ahead of us, but I don't love the term fake it till you make it. But what I took from all that representation of others and having to interview all these property owners as a commercial appraiser, everybody is waking up in problem solving. Some people have better systems, but it's the fact that you're waking up and willing to improve, steadily problem solving. That's really what's separating everybody. Everybody has these limiting beliefs. So I think some people think their limiting beliefs are unique to them, but they're not. We all have to wake up and push through them.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo that, and I would just say, like, you're only competing with the guy in the mirror. You're only competing with the guy you were yesterday. So the comparison trap is really easy to fall into, and it will steal your joy. So, I've been in a situation before where I've closed like massive deals, like, or at least to me, right? Like big deals. And I felt like, oh, this is a culmination of a whole lot of work. This is very, very, I feel fulfilled at that moment, right? Like I've successfully completed that mission. And, next thing you know, you hop on social media and you see something and you're immediately doing the math between you and somebody else. And all that, I don't know, appreciation for what you've generated and what you've done, now has been diminished because you're comparing yourself to somebody that you really have no business comparing yourself to anyway, right? First of all, half the crap on social media is fake. And then the second half of it, even if it is real, it doesn't really matter because it's different circumstances, different resources, different, you don't know how long that guy's been at it. So, you don't know any of that stuff. You're just running your own race, competing with yourself. And if you can keep that focus on just being the better you and stretching yourself a little bit further, like that's where you grow. That's where you see some satisfaction. And I just encourage people just to stay away from the comparison trap, because it will absolutely steal your joy.
I could not agree more, and I'm so thrilled to have you on the show, because you're just dropping incredible nuggets of wisdom here. And another thing, kind of in that same vein, is like, if you're talking about closing like that really big deal, and it feels good in the moment, but if you're not just focused on like a long vision and constant self-improvement, you're going to feel like really, at least I'll speak for myself, I've felt really like empty and hollow sometimes, like right after the culmination of something awesome. And I'm like, this is so counterintuitive. Like, why is my headspace so just like empty, hollow, negative? And I'm like, and I think what it is like it's a blend of like comparison and losing the long vision. And like you said, just look in the mirror and yesterday I closed a big deal. Well, are my habits the very following day as good or better than the day I closed the big deal? That's the only focus. It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. I brokered with some guys in my 20s, and a couple of them have done really well long before I ever had investment success. And I was like, what am I doing? I had a friend I don't think he was 30 yet. He was taking like one-way trips to like Southeast Asia, and his rental properties were paying for everything. And I'm like, man, this guy's young. He's got time. He's got money. And here I am, I came out of law school. A lot of people already know this part of my story, but heavy debt. I had to figure out how to like get through all that just to get my head above water and then think about my future. And that comparison, I got way too caught up on that for years. Now I've kind of elevated myself to, let's call it, level 1, level 2 financial freedom, whatever it is. I could live my life now, not really work, and it would be okay. And I'm happy and proud of that. But the last thing I want to do is just sit back, pat myself on the back. What I really want to do is look at the habits that I gain to get to that moment and not be so focused on where I end up. Just keep the self-improvement going. If that leads to doing 20 hotel deals or 1,000 apartment doors or a bunch of self-storage, whatever it does, that's great. But all I can really focus on is the guy in the mirror, like you said, and what improvement and action step am I going to take today? Because I don't know where I'm going to land, and you want to keep the right mindset to pull you through all those times.
Yep. No, you articulated that really well.
Well, I'm curious, for those that are like thinking about getting into real estate, you've talked about wholesaling, and I do think that, so I'll speak, Obi is a awesome negotiator. We've talked about that. And he even confessed he likes the sparring and it's like a sport. For those of you that, that might be a little bit more timid, we had a guest on, Pocky Judson from Hood Estates, and he made a comment that resonated, and, people have mentioned it to me since then. There is a cheat code, if you will, like, I don't play video games, but there's a cheat code in all this. If you don't share some of the characteristics, it kind of goes back to that who, not how comment that Obi made earlier, but partnership can be a cheat code of sorts. If you don't have the skill set of Obi, but you might have a complementary skill set, or you don't have my background, but you might have something complementary, partnership can be everything. Or as people have success, I'll generalize a little bit. Sometimes, I won't say they lose their tenacity, but they get a little bit fat and happy, maybe a little bit complacent versus where they were when they first came in. If you can be that guy that brings, that 5-hour energy shot in the arm, and you're willing to smile and dial and knock and go and just be a Tasmanian devil for the guy, he'll probably show you much of what you need to learn to one day land up where he is. But you can't just go and say, give me all you know, teach me. You need to bring something to the table, like a real value add proposition. And a lot of times you need to think about, do I have a complementary skill set, or am I just willing to come in and just, hustle for this guy? Any thoughts on that, Obi?
Yeah, I mean that my advice to somebody would really depend on where they're coming at, what they have presently, right? So I think what's important for everybody, myself included, is to really just to take stock of the resources that you have, right? The knowledge that you have, the relationships that you have, the just the connections. All of those are resources, and we kind of undervalue those. Um, but then, just come back to like, what do you like? What are you really good at? What do you dislike? What are you not good at? And play on your strengths. And there you can either hire somebody to do the things you're not good at, or you can partner with somebody that has complementary strengths and get to that next level. Get to that, leverage other people. That's my message.
And just to give like a simple example, let's say you're listening to this and let's say you want to buy a quadruplex. Well, one thing you could do would be to partner with somebody who already owns 10 quadruplexes. They're going to know how to walk them, what to look for, how to review the leases, who's going to give you the money, who should be the one to manage it. You're going to learn so much. I would actually advocate you do that deal on disparate terms, meaning maybe you do something that's not even necessarily on par financially, but you're going to learn. Honestly, early on, I would probably recommend some people maybe do deals maybe for free if you're going to learn, because you have to gain this perspective and this purview somewhere. And I see a lot of like early investors get really caught up on like the terms of deals, and they matter. I mean, you don't want to do things to your detriment per se, but rolling up your sleeves and working, for free is not always a bad idea if you're going to gain some kind of a skill set from it. Or putting your money into a deal, like as a limited partner or a passive investor. Let's say Obi finds a 10-unit apartment, and you're like, you know what, I would love to own 10-unit apartments. Obi's already got a couple. Maybe you've saved some money. Maybe you put $20,000 into Obi's deal. You're passive. You're a limited partner. You don't get to call any of the shots. But if Obi is willing to take your money and open up, let's say, his spreadsheets, what he's looking at, his thought process, it'd be well worth it. Sometimes being a passive investor, like an active passive investor, with a curious mind, that can be a really good way in. A lot of people in my sphere of influence, let's say they're around 40 years old. I do have a lot of friends that are in like the legal profession, and some of them are becoming higher income earners. It might not make sense for them to just like leave the law firm and try and flip and wholesale houses and stuff. But what might make sense is to call somebody like me or Obi or other people in your network, bring your money to them, let them put the money to work. And I think a reasonable ask would be, will you kind of open up and teach me along the way? That doctor or physician or whatever, they may never run their own projects, but it's a much safer way to learn than to just, like burn the ships on the beach, leave your job, call every lead you can, try and fix and rehab and wholesale with no real mentorship. So I did not do this, but I do recommend to people, especially if they have if they're higher income earners, but they really want to pivot and kind of take control and maybe get out of what they're doing. If you already have the income, I would start with passive investing and just find a general partner, meaning the one who's calling all the shots, a general partner who's just going to show you more of the path. And that's a way to cut off a lot of the rough edges, and it's kind of a cheat code through that partnership.
Yeah, you mentioned a minute ago the cheat code, and I think that's it, right? Like it's just taking stock of the inventory of the resources that you have and parlaying those, leveraging those to get ahead in your career and life and in your investment path. And the relationships are the key to doing that for sure.
Obi, I'm going to pivot a little bit. You've done a lot. I mean, that 1,000 deals, 8 years, a nice portfolio, big acreage development stuff. What are your, if you don't mind sharing, what are your goals? And I know we talked about every day is just really about self-improvement and beating the man in the mirror. But do you have any goals that you'd care to share?
Yeah. So What I'm kind of pivoting a little bit in business in the sense that, I've kind of got to the place where like I don't need, I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm not trying to win any awards. I'm comfortable in my um, financially comfortable. Not that I don't want more, but I don't need more. Um, and I'm blessed to be able to kind of say that. And so now I'm turning my attention more to helping people on my team grow to that next level, get to some financial security, and I'd like I've kind of instituted or included a mission as part of our company vision, and that's to have employees that want to be retired within 10 years of working for us. So that, I think that's aspirational in the sense that we're taught that you work for 40 years and retire at 60 or 65, and I think there's a lot of I got into the business because of I wanted freedom, right? And I want that for people that help me build what we're building, and so I'm kind of turning some of that attention to helping others build their net worth, build their passive income, and through that, I'm looking to hire and retain. I'm looking to that to be a component of recruiting as well. I'd like to grow my leadership team to get a little bit more depth there. So I'm looking for some higher level, um, people to come on and be part of our growing enterprise. And the other thing that I'm really excited about this year is we've tied a giving component to top line revenue in the sense that we're committed to having an impact on our community and other people's lives outside um, our own pocketbook, right? And so we're looking just to pay that forward in the sense that we're trying to make a little dent in the universe, trying to help people, and um, we've made a commitment just to tie a percentage of top line revenue to giving.
I think that's awesome, Obi. And what I love is, as you've had your success, you've maintained, in my opinion, and I think it shows through in this interview, you've maintained your humility. And as you've risen, in the community, now you've focused on giving back, and you want your team to have financial independence in 10 years. And I kind of, I'm a little, I kind of know what you mean by that. I assume that, maybe there's some deals that come into the company or some strategies that you impart on them. I'm sure you give them resources and kind of some coaching, but that's just awesome. I think that I have heard of companies where they want everybody on the team to have, they want everyone on the team to own real estate. Ideally, something outside of their primary residence. It could be like a 2 to 4 unit house hack that might work too. But just to like align and so people know why you're doing all these things. If you don't mind sharing, what were some of your greatest influences to date?
I mean, I definitely say faith. You know, I would be lying if I said that Jesus hadn't had an impact on my life. So that's there for sure. Beyond that, in the my wife, I would say, has been a influential person in my growth and development and the business's development. But beyond that, I mean, the normal gurus. Think and Grow Rich was a pivotal book for me. And Napoleon Hill, and let's see, Think Big was an important book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You mentioned Grant Cardone earlier. Grant's a little bit like nails on a chalkboard to me, but at the same time, he's given me a kick in the butt a couple of times and poured gas on a fire. So there's a handful of other mentors, local and regional and nationwide, that have kind of helped me as well. So yeah, I mean, the information's out there. I think just not getting caught up in the BS is equally important.
Yeah, I think that, listening to people that are truly ahead of you, not just people that are talking, not just people that have like loud, noisy social media accounts, but look at those that are truly ahead of you. And when I say ahead of you in the categories you care about. I do want to kind of go back because Obi, I'm going to pat you on the back a little more. As Obi's progressed and grown professionally, he's become even more altruistic. And I have seen, largely through like my brokerage and appraisal work, I had to interview a lot of people, and people that might own like 20 hotels, and like on the surface you're like, these guys they have everything. They got the world on a string. So many of them were like narrow, truly paranoid, still very full of fear, still convinced they could lose everything. A lot of them had family problems because they hadn't kept a broad view as they rose in their success, and they isolated themselves. And I just think it's unfortunate. And so I love what Obi has to say and what his mission has become. Now he's trying to float a lot of boats up with this rising tide. So I think that's a tremendous takeaway, because some people listening to this might already be on the rise. Don't silo yourself off. Let people rise up with you. There's that metaphor. Are we all jumping on a little life raft, or is there room for everyone? And I tend to take an abundance mindset. I still think there's plenty of room. We're not just sinking the life raft. And I think shows like this are evidence of it. If we were really that paranoid, would we get on a show like this and share a bunch of secrets so people can come take all of our livelihood away? No, because it's not going to happen. There is room. There is abundance.
Yeah, there's that old, I don't know, Chinese proverb as it's been relayed to me, but just because the sun shines on my brother's back doesn't mean it doesn't shine on mine. So there is truly an abundance out there. There is no shortage of deals. The market will dictate what's a deal. But yeah, I mean, if there is a shortage of one thing, it's people that are willing to kind of roll their sleeves up and get after the work and do the hard work that it takes. But short of that, there's no shortage of opportunity.
Obi, we're going to kind of transition and taper down towards the end of this episode here. But just on the personal side, what are some of your hobbies and interests outside of crushing real estate investment?
Man, I have got 4 little kids at home, so my hobbies include bouncies, rollies, and ticklies. I've got a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 2.5-year-old, and a 9, almost 10-month-old. My wife and I are foster parents. We've fostered and adopted one, and now are fostering and adopting a second. So, kids take up a lion's share of my time, but, we do horseback riding with them. If I'm able to carve out a little bit of time once in a while, I'll be able to go and do some deep sea fishing and things of that nature. And then earlier this week, we took in 2 Australian Shepherd puppies. So it's kind of like having 2 toddlers run around your house without diapers with razor sharp teeth. So I've definitely got my hands full. But yeah, I mean, we've got a farm on the west side of Jacksonville that we're enjoying utilizing on the weekends, and just kind of getting out in nature and exploring that. So yeah.
On the on kind of a final takeaway note, and you've dropped so many, awesome nuggets on us, but what comes to mind when you see somebody that's let's just say they're early in their journey, maybe they have a unit outside of their primary residence, maybe they have, let's say they have like maybe 1 to 5 rental units, they've started, they have the impetus. What would be like your biggest coaching point? And I could probably paraphrase some you've already made today, but kind of your big takeaway to impart on someone.
Just take stock and figure out what your why is, what your really goal ultimately is. And, I've got a saying that I kind of just, action takers are money makers. So, like if you will never get anywhere without taking action. So the concept is great. Talking about it's great, but actually doing something is what's most critical.
I love that. Action takers are money makers. That might be your clip when we edit this up. Now, where can people find Obi Dorsey?
I'm on social media. Facebook, Instagram under my name, Obi Dorsey, Dorsey. If you've got a deal locally, shoot me an email, obi@freedomholdingsusa.com, or just reach out on my cell, 904-588-2195. Happy to help with anything that you think I can add value to. Love to get to know people. Love to do deals.
Wonderful. All right, everybody. Now you know how to get a hold of Obi. He gave you his cell and everything. So I couldn't thank you more, Obi, for coming on the show. I know I personally enjoyed it, and I think there were a lot of big takeaways from this episode. If the audience is liking what they hear, please make sure on iTunes or Spotify that you rate and subscribe. By doing those two things, it boosts us way up, and it allows us to reach a broader audience. So rate the show, subscribe, and just stay tuned. We're trying to put out shows roughly weekly, and we've got great guests like Obi, and I'm just loving where this is going. Yield Coach is also on Instagram. We are on Facebook. These podcasts also show up on the YouTube channel. We do film the video. If you want to see how handsome Obi is, watch the YouTube version of this. And every now and then we'll do this show and we'll live stream it on Instagram or YouTube. So it's good to tune in on those two channels as well. At the moment, we're going to start scheduling some physical meetups to where if you're in Northeast Florida, we'll be able to get together, bring like-minded investors together, maybe some investment opportunities that we can all collaborate on. So this is an effort to build a community, and a community where we all rise together, much as Obi mentioned earlier in this episode. All right. Well, for that, this is Coach Brown signing off and reminding everybody to lace up and leave it all on the field.